You're listening to Podketeers.
Welcome to episode 251 of Podketeers. This week we talk about some of the Avengers making a surprise appearance at California Adventure. We discuss some of the unfortunate happenings at Fox after the conclusion of the Disney acquisition. An Academy Award-winning director is leaving Disney for Sony. We talk about the stroller and smoking ban at Disney parks. And we cap off the episode with Melissa telling us a little about Toontown. Remember that if you want to join the conversation, you can drop a comment on the blog post for this episode over at podketeers.com/251 or connect with us on social media. Just search for Podketeers on Facebook, Instagram, or on Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube channel. If you do, we'd love it if you took a moment to subscribe and maybe even hit that bell icon for notifications whenever new videos are posted. This episode of Podketeers is brought to you by the support of listeners just like you through their monthly contributions via Patreon. We like to call those listeners our podcast Fairy Godparents, but they call themselves the FGP Squad. If you like the podcast and would like to help us out by becoming part of the FGP Squad, you can find more information on how at podketeers.com/FGP. As always, a huge thank you goes out to the FGP Squad for their support. If you're unable to join the FGP Squad but still want to help us out, there's a simple thing that you can do the next time you need to buy something from Amazon. Start your purchase by going to podketeers.com/Amazon. Once there, click on the large Amazon button that will take you to Amazon's homepage using our special referral link, and anything you buy will earn us a small commission as a thank you from Amazon for mentioning them on this podcast. If you're already doing this before each purchase, we'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you as well. All right, are you ready? I am. We could wait for later, but we're already here, so, we might as well. Oh, you want to do it right now? All right, perfect. Here is episode 251 of Podketeers. Are we live? Or is it Memorex?
Or is it fantasy?
Like, two people will understand that reference. But more importantly, to answer the question, for all of you listening, it's Memorex.
I've got no idea what you're talking about.
Me neither. That's what I didn't
Are
react.
you kidding me?
Are we talking about the VHS brand?
So was that their TV commercial?
Yeah, it's like an audiophile thing, and they would ask the question, like, is it live or is it Memorex? Because the quality was supposed to be so good,
right,
that you couldn't distinguish whether it was a recording or whether it was live.
Gotcha.
My
history lesson for you kids.
The real answer is I prefer vinyl.
That's why I'm so surprised that you don't know what Memorex is.
No, I know what Memorex is. I had no idea what that line meant, though. I'd never heard that commercial.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Up until like the early 90s, television and especially TV commercials were highly regionalized. So national ads would run in the big cities, but like places like Utah, we didn't get a lot of truly national ads, So you probably got a whole different exposure to things like that in California than I did growing up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever get the Energizer Bunny commercials? They keep going and going.
Yeah,
and
we
going.
did. We did get those. But and some campaigns were just blankets, but they didn't apply. So I remember growing up as a kid, we grew up with commercials for Red Lobster, but there wasn't a Red Lobster in Utah until the late 90s.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
It never was there. So we were like, what is this place? Where it doesn't exist. This is a fiction.
That's sad.
You know
Right.
what's funny? I remember seeing those types of commercials, but I remember starting to see that a little bit more when we had satellite and cable, because the broadcasts were coming from, like you said, from different regions. And I remember thinking, like, everything was local to me. So when I started saying, like, come eat a burger at Hardee's or come to Sonic, I was like, what are these places?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they started popping up around here. Hardee's in California is Carl's Jr.
Yeah.
You know, it's Hardee's pretty much everywhere else in the U.S. So, yeah, I get what you're saying. I've been through the same situation.
Yeah.
Now
And
everyone's hungry.
And most of the national brands started on one of the two coasts, right? They either come from California or from New York and then work their way towards the center of the country. So if you grew up in the center of the country, you're about a decade behind, kids. Sorry to burst your bubble.
I don't know, should we just throw out the challenge for East Coast and West Coast listeners? Because now I want to know, since we're already talking about regions, I'm just going to ask the question. In-N-Out or Whataburger?
Oh, see, Whataburger is central, though, because that's Texas. You got to go In-N-Out or White Castle.
No, I think there's one other chain that's supposed to be super big on the East Coast, though.
And it's not White Castle?
I don't think it's White Castle.
Because
I have zero
Whataburger
clue.
came from Texas.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what
Texas.
it is? Shake Shack. That's what I'm
Shake
thinking
Shack.
about.
Okay.
So there it is. There's the question. In-N-Out versus Shake Shack. In all
Shake Shack.
fairness, I've never eaten at Shake Shack before.
I haven't either.
I've only eaten at In-N-Out. But I hear their food is tremendous.
Nice.
So anybody that's had Shake Shack or In-N-Out, let us know which one's better. I know this is totally nothing to do with Disney or anything, but I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know where the best burger is in the U.S.
And the real answer to that is Five Guys.
Oh, come on now. You're killing me,
No.
I
Smalls.
love Five Guys.
Shake Shack
I'm
So
okay
good.
with Five Guys.
So good.
really up there.
Not my place of choice, though, if I'm going to get a burger.
All right. All right.
But nothing tops like the mom and pop's places around here.
Yeah.
That's true
I mean-
everywhere. Yeah.
If I had to go to a major chain and an In-N-Out isn't around, I would prefer to go to the Habit Burger here in California over Five Guys.
Nice. I still haven't been to Habit. I need to
Me
really
neither.
badly.
Well, then we gotta take you.
All right, let's go.
All right. Let's wait till the end of this recording, though. Can we at least wait?
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
But if you hear grumbling on the recording, that's my tummy. There's a rumbly in my tumbly. So much to talk about. I almost feel like I don't know where to start because since the last couple of episodes, we were bombarded by Disney news.
Yep.
And so,
Yeah.
you know, we try to select the stuff that's most interesting to us all the time. And this one thing that I currently want to talk about, Gavin could give two DuckTales about it. But but it's the fact that the Avengers cast was kind of at California Adventure, and they all rode Guardians of the Galaxy, Mission Breakout.
We had some strong feelings about that.
Yeah. I mean, the reason that they were there was actually a very noble one because there's a new initiative that Disney has started, and what they did was they teamed up with the stars from Avengers Endgame to support a $5 million donation to the children's hospitals. It's part of a charity event that supports Disney Team of Heroes. I think that's what it's called. The charity itself or the initiative is like Avengers Universe Unites or something like that. That's great and all, but I mean, let's talk about what's important to me here, and that's that Robert Downey Jr. was a California Adventure, and I wasn't.
Do you know? Oh my God. Out of all the days I could have called out sick. Oh gosh.
You know what's crazier? I was off that day, and I was going to go to the park, and I was just like, nah.
Oh man.
And then that popped up, and I was still like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, I started seeing those posts on Instagram, and I was right in the middle of a meeting at work when I got the alert, and I looked at my phone, and I just stopped talking. And people were like, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And I just kind of looked up, and they're like, "What's going on?" They thought something was seriously wrong. I was like, "I need to go." And they're like, "Where?" I was like, "To Anaheim." And so I told them what was going on, and they're like, "Get back to the meeting, you."
Now, it was totally surprise, right? Like, there was no lead up to this, right? It was just like, ta-da.
No. And I think that's what's most surprising. I think they did it on purpose so that there wouldn't be a flood of people, because I think Disney wanted to announce this initiative that they were doing. So in all seriousness, like I said, it's a very noble thing that they did.
Yeah.
What ended up happening was Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Paul Rudd, and Brie Larson were joined by Bob Iger on a stage in front of Mission Breakout. Well, technically in front of the Hyperion, but, you know, it's really in front of Mission Breakout. Because they were celebrating the fact that they started this initiative, and it included a $1 million donation from Disney to the Starlight Children's Foundation. And then a bunch of other companies jumped in, like Hasbro, Amazon, Funko, and Lego, and they donated over $4 million in toys, you know, to take to these the hospital and to donate to these kids. It was a surprise. It wasn't expected, but I think it was by design, because they wanted to get all the PR shots and get them on the attraction without a bunch of people, you know, crowding them around. But again, yeah, as soon as I found out, I just thought to myself, to have a teleportation device.
Same.
So it's okay. I mean, eventually.
That is what that's here.
I know. I'm trying to compose myself, but it's okay. It'll be fine. I know that there was some people there visiting the park. Our friends from Hilt Radio happened to be in the area the few days, you know, that passed when this happened. And I remember seeing their post on Instagram. They're like, "No, we just missed them by a few hours."
Oh, no.
So I was like, "Yeah, I get you, man. I get you. I'm right there, too. I get it." So if by any chance you were there, you know, we'd love to hear what the experience was like. I know that there was some people posting photos, but if you or somebody that you know happened to be in the park when this happened, leave us a message. Join the conversation over on Instagram, Facebook, or on Twitter. Just search for Podketeers and let us know what the experience was like. Did RDJ talk about me? Because I feel like he was like, "Dude, Hazen, what's up, man?" And like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but I just want to know. I mean, like, I don't need to talk to him all the time, you know. We're still bros and stuff, but ever since that Tom guy came in the picture, like, he just wants to hang out with him. I don't know what's happening. All right, so let's jump into a couple of other things that have happened in the last week or two. One of the biggest things, obviously, is something that we've been talking about for quite some time now, but it was finalized. It is official. Disney is now the owner of 21st Century Fox, and the process to merge the studios has begun, but it also looks like there's going to be a lot of layoffs. The layoffs have already begun. It's starting on the Fox side right now. It looks like about 2,000 employees and a lot of upper management are being transitioned out of the company. You know, we were so excited talking about this the entire time that I don't think any of us really thought of the ramifications of Disney taking on all of these employees, and that a lot of them wouldn't continue with the company. You know, I guess it is one of the things that happens, you know, when something like this happens. But I mean, was this something that you guys had in your head the whole time? Like,
No. I think it's the number that scares me personally. Like, that's a huge number of folks who aren't going to have a job. It's just sad overall. I was shocked. I will say this, I'm really bad with, like, keeping up with this kind of news. I don't know a lot that goes behind. I just know if I read something about it. So this is why I'm like, whoa, this is huge. This is a huge thing that's happening, and it stinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was expected by many of us because this kind of thing didn't happen with the Marvel takeover, with the Pixar takeover, or with the LucasArts takeover. They more or less kept those entities intact. There might have been a small percentage of things that happened as far as, restructuring and
Mm-hmm.
layoffs. And I could be wrong on this, but I don't recall any of that kind of huge cutting happening with those. And to me, it makes this seem a little, I'll just say, less magical because
Yeah.
it seems like they're just interested in the properties and the things that they want to utilize. They're not interested in maintaining their production in the same way. And, that's a little bit disheartening that they're really just buying the catalog, it seems like. And that's just my perception. I could be wrong. But, they're really trimming a lot of fat recently. And it wasn't that long ago that they shuttered the Disney Toons studio and laid off
Oh,
all
that's
those
right.
Mm-hmm.
people. So I'm not really sure what the real game plan is here. I don't know what their goal is aside from acquiring those properties. If it's to have another production entity, then they're going about it in a strange way to me. So I don't know. I think the jury's still out, and I think we kind of need to see how it plays out. But yeah, it definitely sucks for all those people because that I don't know how much notice they were given to us on the outside. It was quick. I don't
Yeah.
know what chance they had to seek other opportunities before this happened. I'm sure they were granted some sort of pension or something, hopefully, but and a lot of this industry is unionized, so maybe they're good to go and they've found other things, but I don't know. Yeah, it took me off guard to say the least.
Shortly after the merger was finalized, Fox 2000 Pictures, which was one of the labels that 20th Century Fox released a lot of films under, was almost immediately closed. That alone, I think, was the beginning of, like you said, Gavin, that they were just really interested in the properties. And that might be the case because when Disney Plus launches later this year, we already know that Disney is going to be really putting an effort forward to not just have original content and the entire Disney catalog, but there's going to be a lot of stuff from the Fox catalog that's going to be available on there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the other question is, how is this going to affect Hulu? Because they owned a portion of it, Disney owned a portion of it. Now Disney has majority stake in Hulu, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, the fact that it came as such a surprise, as far as I know, some of the upper management didn't receive like cash payouts or anything. I think they ended up getting, or I'm sorry, they didn't get stock payouts. They got like cash payouts or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's really strange. I hate to say that something like this was expected. But like you said, they are a union, so we're hoping that a lot of those people are able to find jobs because it sucks to be without a job,
Yeah.
regardless of the industry that you're
Yeah.
in.
Right.
So to all of the people, unfortunately, that have and are losing their jobs because of the merger, we're sorry for the situation, and we hope that you're able to bounce back as quickly as possible. But, as we're talking about all this stuff's happening in the studios. A couple of months ago, we made the announcement that Lee Unkrich was leaving Disney. That, I think, was a little surprising to us as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, he's behind Coco, and he's done such good things for the Disney company as part of Pixar. And so when he announced that he was leaving, it didn't look like he was going anywhere. It just kind of sounded like, I'm kind of done with this for now. I need to take a break. Just gonna go do my own thing. I'm gonna do Lee for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And now, this week, we had another announcement from another Disney, I guess veteran now if you've been there for
Yeah.
a decade,
10
right?
years,
Yeah.
Rich Moore. has announced that he is leaving the Disney company as well. But this one, the surprising twist is that Rich Moore is not just taking a step back to just hang out and do Rich. He's going to Sony Animation.
Yes. And I for one am excited for that. You know, I think it's, as a career move for him where he is, I think it's probably a good move. You know, there's so much tumult right now within Disney, you know, with the exit of John Lasseter, with the, you know, appointment of new leadership, with all of these new acquisitions, and with the slate of sequels that are, you know, we're still in the midst of. I feel like there's a sense of, you know, non-exploration and even kind of plateauing, or I hate to say it, but kind of a mediocre kind of time that we're in right now, which is crazy because we just came off the crest of this insane wave of amazing films, you know, Rich Moore being involved in one of them, in Zootopia, which I thought was a modern masterpiece.
Yeah.
And then they followed that up with Moana. But I mean, with Disney and Pixar films just being sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel, I don't blame him, man. With a studio like Sony that just brought us a revolutionary film like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, that I was hanging out with some artists this weekend, and every few minutes we found ourselves back on the topic of Into the Spider-Verse. You know, we just wanted to talk about how it was so unique and different and expressive in a new way that we've never seen in animation. And for somebody like him, who's a creative, who's an artist, who wants to make amazing films, yeah, I can see how that pasture is way greener right now. You know, so I'm excited to see what he does. You know, it stinks for Disney to lose that talent, but you know, the other thing that Disney has is a huge farm system. You know, kind of like baseball. They've got lots of people waiting in the wings, ready for their shot. So, you know, maybe this will give a new young director a shot, and that'll inject some new energy into the studio and bring us something new. That's what I'm hopeful for. You know, because change is good in creative fields and competition is good. So while Disney consumes one of its competitors, it loses one of its veterans to another competitor to create more competition. So I think ultimately this kind of rounds out to a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
Points.
You know, you mentioned Zootopia. I have to agree with you when you called it a modern masterpiece, because it touched on so many subjects as far as, you know, social commentary that a lot of people just will not directly or even indirectly touch. But Zootopia did it in such a way that it was understandable across the board how, you know, you would see kids talk about it and say, well, they were treating these guys unfairly just because of the way that they looked or just because of the way that they acted. And it took on a whole new meaning outside of just like the let it goes of the Disney universe, right? To me, when I saw Zootopia, not that I wanted to see or make every Disney film social commentary or political in any way, but I felt that Zootopia was this turn in the studio that I thought, wow, we're going to start to see a little bit more of this. That's awesome. You know, I think we need to see stuff like this. And then we didn't. We got more sequels, and then we got Ralph Breaks the Internet, which is great. I love Ralph Breaks the Internet, but you know, Sony Animation is really in its infancy. You know, the studio's only been around since 2002, and I think their first major hit for Sony was Open Season.
Yep.
Right? And since then, they've put out stuff like The Smurfs, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs,
So
Peter
good.
Rabbit. Their biggest franchise, obviously, in the last 5 or 6 years has been Hotel Transylvania. And now Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Considering that Sony is in such an infant state, when you think of the legacy that the Disney studios or even Pixar at this point brings to the table, how do you think a studio like Disney or Pixar can move forward and experiment more like they did with Spider-Man without ruining that legacy? Because I think Sony's Sony's willingness to experiment with Spider-Verse was because they don't yet have a legacy. They have a bunch of animated films, but they don't have the Disney way of animation. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have that set of rules. Like, what do you think could help Disney enter that spectrum?
Well, yeah, I understand this question very well, and I think it's a good one. I think that that's exactly how you build a legacy is, through that expression and experimentation and, broadening the box in which you operate. And I think that Disney has, in a couple different eras, fallen into the trap of, predefining their own box and not wanting to live outside of it. But when they've broken new ground, they've increased their own legacy, So when they changed the animation style from what we consider the golden era to that next era where they were using Xeroxes of the actual animators' sketches, and everything became so much more tactile and even rough. It gave everything a totally new look, and it created a new Disney style. And the same revolution happened again in the late 80s when, what we see is that last great era of 2D animation, the Disney Renaissance. That had a very stylistic look that was totally different than what Disney had done before. And so to me, that's what it is. It's about, look, we've been in this box for about 10 years now. Every Disney character looks like it came out of the same character catalog, with different little aspects here and there, but they all have a very distinct look that's all the same. Let's change it up. Let's flip it on its head. Let's do something different. And, if somebody who's creative like Rich Moore doesn't see that on the horizon, then he's going to go create legacy somewhere else. And I think that's what Sony's really working on is not, because so many studios are trying to chase that Disney Pixar look, right? Especially the smaller studios. Their goal is to make it look as close to Disney Pixar as they can. Stylistically, texturally, the quality of their animation, everything. But if you can hit those marks and then bend those rules and create something new, that's when you're going to make a mark. And I think that Disney is just in a spot right now where they're trapped in their own box. And as soon as they wrap up all these sequels, then they're going to have to come up with something new. So I think it's only a matter of time. I'm still the biggest Disney fan. I can be critical of them, but be passionately in love with their animation. And I still am, and I always will be. I'm just waiting for the next thing, because right now it's kind of a slog through the remaining sequels that we've got left.
You're right, because the most exciting thing is the Spark shorts.
Yes, that's a perfect example. Pixar is working towards it because of things like that. Exactly. It's a great example.
But see, that's also where it's a little strange, right? Because we have the Pixar shorts that Pixar's releasing, but yet, Rich Moore has also consulted on all other projects outside of the ones that he's worked with as part of Disney Animation Studios. And as much as we want to say that they're the same studio, they're really not, because Disney Animation Studios and Pixar work on different wavelengths. They produce for the same company, but the storytelling aspect that comes along with a Pixar film versus a Disney animation film, it feels that it was more processed and that it was more well thought out and that it was refined over time versus a Disney animation film where it just felt like it was produced because they needed the next big thing, for DVD or for digital release or something. And again, just like Gavin, I'm critical about this stuff at times as well. And I love Disney and I love the studio and I love what they produce. But, like you said, it is time for a change. And do you think that change is going to come from within, from things like the Spark Shorts, or do you think it's going to come from producers and directors jumping to Sony and jumping back, jumping to DreamWorks, jumping back, and somebody coming in from another studio that sees things outside of the Disney bubble that's going to say, look, this is what's going to shake things up next?
Yeah, I could see it being a mixture of all of those things because, nothing is straightforward in this business. We all know how these things take years to make, and they go through rewrites and they go through director changes and all of it. And I think you're going to have a lot of new energy from within as younger artists and producers and directors are given a shot as these veterans move out. But also Disney is always looking for talent. And, if another director from another studio wants to jump over, I'm sure there's going to be opportunity for that as well. I mean, I could see it happening from any angle. I just think it's a matter of time is all.
Yeah. You know who I would like to see a little bit more from? And the unfortunate aspect of them producing films has a lot to do with just how long it takes to put them together, is Leica.
Oh, yeah.
Because Leica is producing such beautiful films and continuing in the realm of stop motion, but mixing a lot of the digital technology and elements that we see in new 3D productions. They're breaking a lot of ground, and I wish they had a bigger team, to put more stuff together without really sacrificing that story element. Yeah. Because I think Leica, once it grows up a little bit, I think they're going to be a huge force to be reckoned with as well.
I agree. I mean, man, this is really turning into my kind of conversation here. I'm totally geeking out. I'm a huge fan of Leica. Leica is one of my favorite animation studios in the entire world. And Travis Knight's vision is one of quality over quantity. And I really appreciate that. He's focused on never overstretching what they're capable of, and I like that. I agree, like it'd be nice if we could have more from them more often, but I'm willing to wait the 1 or 2 years or sometimes 3 or 4 years between pictures for the quality that we get, because they are like that. They're in that sweet spot that Pixar was for their first 5 or 6 films, where it was just like lightning in a bottle. Everything coming out was just mind-blowing, amazing, beautiful, wonderful storytelling, amazing craftsmanship. And I'm hoping that they can ride that out and keep it going and not, succumb to the temptation of growing faster than they should. That's my hope. But I agree. More Leica is better.
Yeah. Well, as you know, we're going to continue monitoring this situation because I feel like Rich Moore, he's got a very good legacy ranging all the way back to when he used to work on The Simpsons. You know, he's always had this amazing writing where one of the main episodes that he directed ended up winning an award. I forgot what it won, like an Oscar or something like that. But then he went on to help create Futurama, which has an entire cult following as well. It is going to be bad for Disney to lose him, but I feel it's almost in that situation where now Disney has to say, okay, now what?
Right.
So it almost expedites what the next big thing is going to be, or they have to start thinking outside of that box. So, all right. What else man, I'm telling you, there was so much that I wanted to talk about this week. Oh, this whole stroller situation thing.
Yes.
Yeah. At the parks. So Disney released, I know that was a weird transition, right? But I'm trying to inventory in my brain, all this stuff I've been wanting to talk about with you guys. So Disney made an announcement that kind of rocked the Disney fandom because they have decided that they are going to ban smoking and strollers larger than a specific size. I think it's 54 inches wide is what the limit is in all Disney parks. And this is in anticipation of the opening of Galaxy's Edge. Project Stardust has been going on for quite some time, and they've been working on widening up walkways, removing trees, removing benches, all in the name of making sure that the bottlenecks are removed as much as possible without removing the beauty of the park itself, which is a hard balance to strike, especially when you don't have a lot of space to grow.
Sure.
Your thoughts on the announcement on the smoking and the stroller situation. Mel, what did you think?
Way to go, Disney. And the reason I say this is because, especially about the strollers, there's been times where they block a walkway. I honestly think, especially the wagons, and I apologize if you have one, but they take up a good chunk of space as you're walking. Um, I don't really think they're necessary. There's other strollers. I have traveled with one when my niece and nephew were smaller. Eh, I mean, I really think those wagons were just a nuisance. So I'm really glad that Disney's putting their foot down. And yes, I do see a backlash on it, but if they're making their part on widening every single inch of space that they're, at the park for Galaxy's Edge, you know, we got to do our part too. We really do.
Yeah, I agree. In an effort to avoid being too negative and or confrontational with these two topics, I'm interested mostly in seeing how this is going to, on the stroller side, how they're going to police it. When and where are they going to tell people their stroller is too big? If they're at Mickey and Friends and they're on the top level and the very back, and they load up their stroller, make it all the way to the elevator, wait in line for the elevator, make it down, go through the new switchbacks to get to security down there, get all the way up to security, and at that point they measure their stroller and they're told, oh, you got to take this back. That's not going to go very well.
Well,
Right.
there was times where, remember the selfie sticks? They had
Sure,
signage everywhere.
that's fair,
Everywhere.
but not
So,
everybody has a ruler to measure their stroller when they get to the park, right?
Right.
So
Right.
are they going to have like giant, like I envision it like when you go to the airport and they got the little box and it says if your carry-on can fit in this box, then you can bring it on to the plane with you, right?
Ah,
So I
yeah.
figure they'll have like some sort of stall, and hopefully they would have that on every level saying, hey, before you get down to security, check your stroller. If you can fit it through this little metal square, then it's allowed in, right? Like
Yeah.
I just imagine a terrible scene at security where people are yelling and upset, and
Yeah.
you want to avoid that. But I think that's a good move, because I'll call it the SUV culture of America has trickled down to our strollers, and we think these monstrosities are acceptable when it's just overkill. It just is, and I understand. I'm coming from the point of somebody who doesn't have kids. Hazen can probably relate to this more than any of us. Not probably, definitely can. But
Definitely.
Yeah.
I remember when I came to the park as a little kid, and my little brother was in a stroller, and it was just a tiny little stroller with a cloth seat. It was just a seat with wheels, and you could
Yeah.
you
Right.
could hang a diaper bag on the back of it. That's it. Like it's not got stow compartments and cup holders and wheels that you could climb Mount Everest with. It's inconspicuous, and it doesn't take up any room. And when we talk about 60-inch, 80-inch wide strollers times 4,000, that exponential increase is insane. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
So I see this from two sides, just like you commented a moment ago, because we've been in the situation where we've needed a stroller, and we were in a situation at one point where we needed a double stroller for both kids because they won't last walking or standing for a very long time through the entire park. Especially now with the removal of benches throughout the park, you really have to make a concentrated effort to find a location to sit, and those locations will become scarce as the summer months come around and more people are looking for places to just hang out, have a drink, relax in the heat, right? So I totally understand what you're saying about the stroller, but I think the culture of people that go to Disney when you were saying, it was just basically a cloth seat with wheels versus what it's become today, is there's been a huge mindset shift as far as going prepared to the park. Annual passes were not as big as they were before.
Right.
And so when you went to Disneyland, you didn't necessarily go prepared to camp out and just hang out and, just people watch like we do now. I think the culture was you spent your money, you're going to get on as many rides as possible, watch as many shows as you can, and you go home at the end of the day. That's your vacation. If you're lucky, you come back the next day. Mm-hmm. Now you have 2 parks that you have to deal with. So most people will come prepared not just with a diaper bag, but with bottles of water and sandwiches or chips or snacks for their kids. And I think a lot of people have the mindset of, if I can bring snacks from home, why am I going to spend $6 on a bag of cookies when I can spend 25 cents and bring it from Costco? Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? Yeah. So I don't think it's as much of just the stroller culture. It's the fact that more people come more prepared than they have in the past.
Sure.
With that said, I totally get it. We always did our best, even with the double strollers, to have a stroller that was as small as possible, because we didn't like it when people would ram their strollers into our heels, or they would bump into our kids, when they were walking around versus being in the stroller. And it is a nuisance. It does hurt children the most. And there's a lot of people with these larger strollers that sometimes let their kids push it, and they're just playing around. They're not necessarily wheeling them properly, and so people get hurt. The biggest problem I see with the smaller strollers is also that the wheels get stuck in the train tracks on Main Street and all these cobblestone walkways, because the wheels are not meant for off-roading. These utility strollers, talking about the SUV culture and talking about utility vehicles, these utility strollers have thicker wheels that are meant for tougher terrains, and it makes it easier to navigate stuff like that. I could tell you that as a parent, I see where a lot of people would be super concerned about how they're going to cater to their kids throughout the day, because lockers are available in the park, but 1, they cost a lot, and 2, they run out really quickly in the morning. They're not always available. So maybe there has to be some concession on Disney side as well to install more lockers in the Esplanade, or create more places where you can just hang out. Like the picnic area at Disneyland is super small.
Yeah.
It doesn't house a lot of people. So maybe they need a couple more places outside in the Esplanade, or maybe some seats, benches, whatever the case is. But yeah, I understand. I know the company, I think it was the owner of the company that makes one of the big wagon strollers, Keen's, I believe, put out a statement saying, hey, voice your concern to Disney. They're going to ban us. And I can understand how a company like that would be concerned, because you would think that people that go to Disneyland or go to these parks are their biggest source of income.
Maybe.
So I can understand how. I don't know how big that company is. I don't know if they're considered a small company or not, but it is going to take a toll on companies like that. Overall, limiting the size of what you can bring in, I think, is a good thing. I think the best decision they made was not saying strollers are completely banned. I think people just will now have to be a little bit more mindful to not get like the Jeep stroller with like the 17-inch wheels with chrome hubcaps, and just get a smaller one that's more utilitarian than anything else, right?
Yep.
So, if you had any thoughts on that particular subject, we'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Join the conversation on any of the social networks, because Gavin and Melissa, they stated they don't have really any experience in this subject. We have experience, but we left our stroller a long time ago. You know, our kids have been walking around the park for quite some time now, but I do still get people bumping into the back of my heels with their strollers because they're not paying attention, the kids playing around, and that's why I brought that up, because I have been subject to that type of treatment in the park. So, you know, let me know how you guys feel about that, if you're happy about it. Again, let's try to keep the conversation civil. You know, we don't want to spark any arguments. We just want to know what your thoughts are. And maybe Disney will somehow hear these thoughts and say, well, you know, maybe we can concede to doing this or that. And that's really what it's about. Talking about it and trying to figure out a better solution. So,
Right.
man, so good. I'm telling you, so much to talk about. All right. Well, I want to jump into this week's topic because we could keep talking about all this cool Disney stuff and all the non-cool Disney stuff and all the everything that's been happening. Like Robert Downey Jr. not calling me back. Call me back, RDJ.
You know what? I'm sure his ears are ringing by now. It should happen anytime.
Jarvis, please have Tony call me.
Lame. I can't believe we're going to skip over new attractions at DCA, but whatever. We got your Downey Jr. in there.
Let's talk about new attractions at DCA. Gavin, let's talk about this.
So Jesse's Critter Carousel kind of opened. I don't know if anybody's been down there to see it yet, but it looks really super cute. But it's at a rough start. It has been in and out of operation for its entire opening weekend. I got in line for it no less than 2 times. And it broke down, and they told everybody to get out of line both times. I know our friends from Hilt Radio tried many times over the weekend, and they were able to do it once on Saturday and once on Sunday. But I don't know what's going on with it. It's just a carousel, but it keeps, I don't know, it's weird. But it looks really cute. Jessie out front is super adorable. It's fun to see her really big in front of you. Like she's I guess it makes sense because the scale of Mr. Potato Head is big too over at Toy Story Midway Mania. So she like kind of towers over you, but she's super cute. So I thought they did a good job. There's a couple of hidden Mickeys which have already been spotted in that attraction. So go try and find the hidden Mickeys. They're fun to find. But I think more interesting than that is the announcement that Mickey's PhilharMagic is coming to the Sunset Theater.
Yes.
I mean, this is something I've wanted to see for a long time because I haven't been to Disney World since it was opened there. And I've always heard about it. It sounds really fun. It's in basically every resort around the world except the one in California. So
Soon.
It's finally coming here to help celebrate Mickey and Minnie Mouse. And I'm pretty pumped about it. It's going to be nice to have an attraction back in that spot. And have you actually seen it, Melissa?
I have.
Ooh.
And it's one of the attractions I really miss from Walt Disney World. I really do. It's so adorable that I had to go and experience this multiple times. So when we found out that it was coming here, I was like, oh my God, hold on. I need a moment. Because, I mean, I could kind of wait on Walt Disney World now. It's going to be here.
Nice.
Now, have you had a chance? I mean, I experienced many of those attractions on YouTube, you know, as you do. And have you had a chance to watch the Mickey's PhilharMagic from like Disneyland Paris or Tokyo or anything to compare them?
No,
because
I haven't.
The original attraction opened up in 2003 at Magic Kingdom. So it does have some miles on it.
Yeah.
Have you read if there's going to be any type of update to the attraction, or are we getting a mirror of what already exists?
From what I understand, we were going to get a mirror of what exists, but I know the one in Paris is a little bit different. What I'm more excited is because our theater has the surround screens. So that could kind of play into a new, like you would say, a new look into it. Because from what I understand, I mean, from what I remember, it's 2 screens. I mean, like I said, we have the surround screens, so who knows what they could do.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how they arrange it in there. But It'll be nice to give some energy to, that kind of sad, semi-dying section of DCA.
Yes.
So hopefully that brings some energy, and, it's just one more Mickey thing they're doing this year, and that's exciting. And it's also heavily featuring Donald Duck, though, which is also cool because there's not really any major features of Donald, in the resort either. You got his boat or whatever in Toontown, but that's just a playground, like it's cool because Mickey and Minnie are getting their railway ride, which also features Goofy. So it's cool that we'll have this that also features Donald. So I think it's cool.
Yeah. You know what property I wish we would get more of a California Adventure, just because I feel it fits the whole adventure / superhero, is Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, yeah.
Kingdom Hearts is very heavily reliant on Donald and Goofy throughout the story and throughout the gameplay. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just another heroic story that they could tell with Donald and Goofy. But I think that property would fit really well there. It is interesting to see that they are pulling Mickey's PhilharMagic into that theater and that they're not demolishing it. I would have thought that they were going to do a little bit more with Marvel to expand the Marvel area into that. Mm-hmm. But if they're investing the money to bring that show in there, I don't think it's going to be like a 6-month play. It might be there for quite some time.
Yeah.
So it leads me to wonder what's going to happen to the Monsters, Inc. attraction that's right next door to it. That's another attraction that I think we've talked about. How do we reimagine it? What can it turn into with Marvel coming into that area?
Yeah.
If that's the case, that attraction might be there for quite some time as well.
Or, see, now we're into armchair Imagineering territory.
Uh-oh.
What if, they transform that area behind Hollywood Studios, which is kind of like its own, or Hollywood Land. It's kind of like its own area. It's not, it's part of Hollywood Land, but it's kind of separate, like they could reimagine that whole area as a Kingdom Hearts area, and that the space where Monsters Inc. is in could become a Kingdom Hearts attraction.
Sold.
And so with Donald next door at the theater, it could tie in enough, like the theater is separate enough that it doesn't have to be like necessarily incorporated into the theme of it all, like It could really be a cool area. They got all the stage 17 area back there, and I think that could be cool, and that could kind of be a nice little bookend. So you've got Hollywood Land and Hollywood Boulevard kind of in the middle, and on one side is Kingdom Hearts Kingdom, and on the other side is Marvel place. Stark Park.
I'm for it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Sorry. We could go on forever.
I'm telling you. Oh, man, I can't believe I almost missed on talking about this. Good call, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Good call.
And now let's talk about the parking garage. Just kidding. We can go to the topic.
Yeah, let's talk about the parking garage next episode.
Okay.
There's not a lot to talk about, but let's talk about it next episode because I really want to talk about and listen to this week's topic. As you know, every week we try to tackle a new portion of the park. We try to tackle an attraction, the history, or at the end of the month, we try to tackle our own ideas by having armchair Imagineering episodes. And this week, Melissa is going to bring us the history of Toontown. There's been a lot of talk of Toontown with Mickey finally getting his own attraction, but there is some history to Toontown. And Melissa, let's take it away. Let's do this. I'm excited to hear this.
Sure. It is time to go behind the berm, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Choo-choo.
Right? So, dating back to the 1930s as a private area for the Toons to live as relaxed and freely as can be, in Disneyland Park history and books, it was told that Mickey created Toontown, and the only other person to have known was Walt.
Nice.
However, with the release of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, big plans were made where Roger himself would be the star of a new land with attractions based off the film, but this land would actually be behind Main Street USA. And the name of it would be Hollywood Land. So,
Really?
Oh, interesting.
right? As we're just talking about that. Oh, man. So Toontown was a secret for many decades until the gates behind the berm was opened at Disneyland in 1993. Upon arrival to the gates, you'll see some of the signs along the way as you enter Toontown. Knights of the Loyal Inkwell, Daughters of the Animated Reel, or DAR, with Minnie and Daisy. You'll also see signs that says U-turns are okay and the caution sign that reads gags ahead. Now, this land for theming is the wackiest of them all. The gags, the shapes, the architecture, and even the atmosphere is bonkers. I mean, every day is colorful when you have yourself a gag warehouse along with the fireworks factory, right? What can go wrong?
Right.
It's everyday norm here, and you can never forget the name Toontown as you see it on the hills in the distance. Now, the land is divided into 3 districts. This I really did not know.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
So there's downtown, Toontown Square, and Mickey's Neighborhood. The first district you see upon arrival is downtown, where you could take a spin with Benny and Roger, visit Toontown's Five and Dime, the Gag Warehouse, Fireworks Factory, the Post Office, and the Fire Department. At the post office, there's 6 mailboxes for Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, Roger, and Jessica. One of the neatest things about these mailboxes is that you could get a little glimpse of everyday life if you just tune in. Now, with all the gags at eye level, let's take a quick look up, and you'll see something in a similar fashion to Main Street. Windows with little nods to them. Few notable windows such as Jiminy Cricket, motivational speaker.
My boy.
The Chinny Chin Chin Construction Company.
Nice.
The 3 Little Pigs, proprietors. And 2 Laugh-O-Gram Films Inc. windows. One for Reels of Fun and one for W.E. Disney, directing animator.
Nice.
And that, by the way, is one of my favorite features of Toontown.
Yeah.
The way that it pays homage to Main Street,
Totally.
Yeah.
I think is brilliant.
Yep. I totally agree.
So, last but not least, the Jolly Trolley. For nearly 10 years, you were able to ride the Jolly Trolley in a figure 8 that traveled from Roger Rabbit Toonspin all the way down to Mickey's Neighborhood and back. There would be zany music and sounds as you heard it bounce its way around. To best describe the way it bounced is very similar motion in comparison to riding in a beehive through the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh in Critter Country. You can still find the trolley today as a photo op in downtown. The next district is Toontown Square. Let's check out City Hall, one of 2 in Disneyland, of course, with the other one being in Town Square. Above it, you'll see a working clock, which actually is called a glockenspiel. Something else I didn't know. I was like, oh, I'm learning as I'm doing this research.
I almost feel like that has to be said by Dr. Von Drake.
Yeah,
It's the Glockenspiel of Toontown.
maybe.
Totally. That's awesome.
So it's literally the bell and whistles along with some wacky faces and fireworks that are ready to shoot off in the sky. The most awesome thing about this is that it comes alive on the hour, every hour, to the Mickey Mouse March. Mickey's hands just goes all around the clock face. The hands with horns come out of the sides, which looks like cannons. The bell begins to ring itself with mallets, and the sounds of fireworks are going off to complete the hourly celebration. It's really cool and definitely an experience to enjoy.
I don't think I've ever seen that go off.
Yeah, it's a small world, but in Toontown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's really short. You're looking at maybe a minute. So if you're not there, you will miss it. But it's really, really cool because it's animated. Literally.
Now I'm gonna make it a point to sit there and look for it.
Yeah, totally.
Talking about that, one really neat thing about that area is that there's tons of seating for the eateries that's around. The gazebo right in front also makes for a great photo op. The seating is actually for Clarabelle's, Daisy's Diner, and Pluto's Doghouse. There's actually a fun little nod to the left of Daisy's Diner, and it's a sign for the ink and paint department, which is really, really sweet because you really don't see as many nods like that, especially for one of the most important departments in animation. So that was awesome.
That is cool.
Now, smack in the middle of the square is Goofy's gas station, which cracks me up because you could literally fuel up, get Goofy water, but it also serves as a resting stop with restrooms. So go ahead and insert all the gas jokes right in here. As I was reading, I'm like, hey. Leave it to the imagination. So the final and probably the largest district in Toontown is Mickey's neighborhood. Homes are styled to represent each character, even through color scheme. Goofy's home, or Goofy's playhouse, looks like a hot mess, but it takes you back to every how-to cartoon short of his. Now, before it was Goofy's Playhouse, it was Goofy's Bounce House for about 15 years until 2008. There was literally a bounce house where little ones were able to jump in on the furniture without any worries. To the side, you could see his garden and the many plants, a play area, and a few hilarious weather vanes. In the front of his house, you'll see a vehicle that's crashed into his mailbox post. Looks a little goofy if you ask me. Donald's boat, which was awesome that you brought up earlier, is practically modeled after Donald if you look at it from a profile view. Named the Miss Daisy after his beloved and sassy girlfriend Daisy Duck, just about everything on this boat is fashioned to his likeness, including water. After admiring both Goofy and Donald's homes, you may hear a loud roar that's coming from Gadget's Go Coaster. Gadget's own nutty design of an acorn coaster is perfect for the little ones, of course within the guidelines. Talking about acorns, right next to the coaster is Chippendale's treehouse. During its first 5 years, the treehouse actually had an acorn pit.
What? Like real? Like you could eat acorns?
Oh, no, not acorns.
No, like a ball pit.
Oh, like a ball pit. Oh, okay. Okay. Whew. Threw me for a loop for a second. I was like,
I think
ew.
that would hurt. There was a slide that took you right into the pit from the treehouse, and you could actually still find the netting right below today. Now, if you were to climb up all the way to the top, you would have a bird's eye view of Mickey's Toontown. I should say this is more preferably for little ones because I've attempted and I do not fit. I am too tall.
Either.
Enter at your own risk, but it is pretty cool. Let's go ahead and walk, and you'll notice a huge water fountain of Mickey conducting the tunes. You too can be a part of this conducting fun if you step on the huge buttons on the floor with the instruments on them. Give them a good stomp next time you see them and let the music play. Right next door is Minnie's house with the daintiest look with the flowers, the polka dots, the roundness aesthetic. Her color palette is very sweet, soft, and candy-like, along with many, many hearts. Behind her home is a lovely gazebo with a tea set that matches her home. And it's really adorable and makes for another wonderful photo op. If you're lucky, you may get a glimpse or even get a visit from Minnie herself. Next door to Minnie is Mickey. Mickey's house is one of the many highlights in Toontown, if not the one highlight you must visit. You enter his home and you get to see everything, including the kitchen sink. But most awesome part is that you go through his barn where you get to see all his famous props, the costumes that lead you to actually meeting the mouse himself. Throughout the years, Mickey has met many guests as Sorcerer Mickey and even Steamboat Willie. It's totally worth the tour of his home when you finally get to meet him. The experience is always special as if you're the VIP. And that right there is all of Toontown.
It's so cool. I love how, you mentioned it, especially with Donald's boat, but really with all of them, they all have the color scheme and a lot of the styling that mimics the character models as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you can look at it from afar and see, like, oh, that's Goofy because he's got those same colors, you know?
Yeah.
I thought that was a clever touch that they did in that area. I think Mickey's Toontown is one of the most photogenic places in the park as well. It's really pretty. It's super fun design. And, you mentioned the Toontown sign in the hills behind town, mimicking the Hollywood sign. But they use a really good effect of atmospheric perspective with those hills. Mm-hmm. They make them a little hazier so they seem even farther away. Mm-hmm. And they're really not that far away. They're all pretty close, but it gives a lot of depth to that area. It also hides the 5, which is right behind Toontown. It's a really neat area that I think a lot of people miss out on, especially if they don't have little kids. It's totally worth going and strolling through, even if you're not going to tour the houses or get on Roger Rabbit. It's worth a look-see, and you'll end up snapping a few photographs while you're back there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I now that I'm looking back and thinking about it, I think this is the one spot, the one land that has so many opportunities, photo op-wise. I mean, so many vehicles. Now that I think about it, I kind of think I forgot a few things. But yes, there's tons of photo ops in that land.
Yeah.
It also has a hugely underrated soundtrack. I love the music back
Agreed.
there. It's so awesome.
Very true. You're right. I love the soundtrack there. I have a collection, a Disney collection of music, and the Toontown one is one of the ones that comes up frequently for me to listen to.
Oh, yeah.
It's just so lively that it kind of it's one of those whistle while you work type soundtracks. Yeah. It's just hey, I can get anything done while I'm listening to this. But, you mentioned photo ops. One of the coolest things that I think Toontown has that I don't think a lot of people understand when they see it is that when you're looking out into Goofy's garden in that little area, one of the coolest Easter eggs is that there is a pumpkin that has glasses on. That pumpkin is carved to look like Jack Lindquist. If that name doesn't sound familiar to you, Jack Lindquist, super amazing person that came up with a lot of the marketing and stuff that Disneyland, a lot of the marketing campaigns that Disneyland now does, like Grad Night. He was the first president of Disneyland, now a Disney legend. But the fact that with the opening of Toontown, I almost feel like it's an homage to him being the first president of Toontown as well, like he was of Disneyland. So if you've never seen it before, check it out. It's in Goofy's garden. It's just a pumpkin with black glasses on. That pumpkin is an homage to Jack Lindquist.
Yeah.
That's another nod. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super cool.
I think the only thing for me that's kind of, I don't know, weird, I guess, about Toontown is Gadget's Go Coaster. That's such a dated character that I don't think kids are familiar with today because of the way that Disney has always buried their television properties after the shows are over. I'm always surprised that they never rebranded that as something else, but maybe this current resurgence of 90s nostalgia as well as Disney Plus on the horizon, maybe because is she from Rescue Rangers or is she from Tailspin?
She's from Rescue Rangers.
Okay,
yeah.
I knew it was one of those Disney afternoon shows. Maybe those shows will be back on Disney Plus, and kids will get to refamiliarize themselves with that character. Because in all honesty, a few years ago, I kind of reacquainted myself with Toontown, and I didn't know who Gadget was. I didn't watch that show.
Really?
I never watched that show when it was on, so I didn't know who it was. I had to look it up. And I was surprised that you've got these icons, right? You got Mickey, Minnie, Daisy, Donald, Goofy, Chip and Dale, the ultimate icons of Disney and Gadget. It's kind of weird, I mean, I get Roger Rabbit and the whole impetus for creating Toontown because of what you see in that movie and the huge success of that film and everything, and the fact that that's available for people to watch today. But Rescue Rangers isn't, And so I don't know. It just sticks out to me as kind of strange. I dig Gadget's Go Coaster. I think it's the cutest roller coaster ever. I just think it's weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to remember that at one point in the early 90s, there really was a push to try to bring some of the Disney afternoon properties into the parks, because, we had Gadget's Go Coaster, but then we also had like Gummy Glen, and then we had the Rescue Rangers Raceway, and it didn't quite hold up like the other properties did. But I mean, at least there was an effort at one point to bring the properties into the park in a major way that people would recognize it and want to do the attractions. Unfortunately, when the Rescue Rangers Raceway went away and they closed up the little boat ride and everything, they turned it into, and now it's just Fantasia Gardens. It's part of the plaza there in front of It's a Small World. Gadget's Go Coaster is really the only thing left that we have of that era, anywhere really in the park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even in California Adventure. That's so crazy.
It's true.
This will make for an interesting armchair session.
Yeah.
Definitely. I agree.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Melissa. That was super cool.
You're welcome.
It makes me want to ride Roger Rabbit. I haven't done that in a while.
Well, you're going to want to ride it even more after next week's episode.
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yep.
All right. I'm looking forward to that. That's called a teaser, kids.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. If you like what you're listening to, tell a friend. The best way to help us grow is by you telling a friend and commandeering their phone and signing them up through their favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. We're on most of them. So go ahead and just sign them up and tell them, start listening. You'll like it. They're fun. And if they're not fun, I'll buy you a churro. Not me personally, but maybe you will buy your friend a churro. I don't know. I don't know how your friendship works. Maybe a Dole Whip. You figure it out. But yes, if you like what you're listening to, please help us spread the word and help us grow. Also, leave a comment or leave a review on iTunes. That also helps the exposure of the podcast grow when we're suggested in iTunes or in Google Podcasts, also in Spotify. If you want to help us out, whenever you make an Amazon purchase, the best way to do that is to start your journey at podketeers.com/Amazon. You'll find a big Amazon button. Click it, take it to Amazon using our special link. Anything that you purchase will earn us a small commission as a thank you from Amazon because we mentioned them on the podcast. To everybody doing that, we just want to say thank you. And of course, the best way to help us out is by becoming part of the FGP Squad. The FGP Squad is a group of listeners just like all of you that help us out with a monthly contribution via Patreon. To all of the members of the FGP Squad, we just want to send out a huge thank you for all of your support. More information on how you can join the FGP Squad can be found at podketeers.com/FGP. And that's it. It's time to wrap this baby up so that we can go to... Are we going to Five Guys or In-N-Out? What did we decide on?
Habit.
Oh, the Habit. Oh, yes, even better. Let's do this.
I haven't forgotten.
So, well, I almost did. I'm glad that you didn't let me forget. So that's it. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep moving forward, and always remember to pass on the magic. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Made you look.